Happy Leap Day, everyone. Thank you for joining us as we approach the month of March, Women's History Month. Now, the word amplify means to increase the volume or the presence of something. We hope that today's conversation will be just the beginning of many that we will have in our industry to increase the presence and the voices of women of color in key leadership roles throughout the credit union industry. There's a gold mine of leadership potential that our industry can benefit from. For example, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, Black women are currently the most highly educated demographic in the United States. But yet, the short-lived tenure of leaders such as Dr. Claudine Gay in her role as president of Harvard University, or of Roz Brewer, formerly CEO of Walgreens, as well as other women leaders' credentials, reveals a pattern of women of color whose work is over-scrutinized and yet unsupported. According to a recent McKinsey and Company report, women of color face the steepest drop-off in representation from entry-level to C-suite positions. Women hold only 35% of senior leadership positions currently, compared to men who represent 65% of leadership positions. Make no mistake, women of color finally do hold leadership positions, and yet they are not just in the spotlight, they're under a heat lamp. As leaders, they have experienced intense scrutiny regarding their competence and immense pressure to succeed, often in very short amounts of time with little room for grace. How can we amplify the voices of women of color in the credit union industry? How can we recognize and support women of color as viable leaders to be truly seen and developed for leadership roles, to be heard and humanized? Today's conversation will hopefully serve as a gateway for fruitful conversations and action for the month and the years to come. Now, without further ado, I'd like to briefly introduce my distinguished panelists. First, we'll start with Whitney Anderson, who serves as the board chair of the African American Credit Union Coalition and serves in a critical stewardship role for AACUC's Future Fund and the Impact Portfolio. Whitney has previously served as the CEO of Elements Financial Credit Union, as well as Chief Community Development Officer at Michigan State University Federal Credit Union, and is the first Black woman elected to the Board of Directors for the National Association of Federal Credit Unions, NAFCU. Damaris Carroll is the DEI and Employee Experience Program Manager at PSCU. She has developed organizations increase awareness and provide transparency around DEI metrics and data, and sets strategies to move the proverbial needle. She has over 15 years of professional experience and is a certified DEI professional and certified Gallup Clifton Strengths coach. Next, we have Emma Hayes, who is Chief Learning and Engagement Officer for the State Employees Credit Union in North Carolina. She also serves as the Chief Diversity Officer for the African American Credit Union Coalition. Her roles include overseeing DEI initiatives, leadership development, employee engagement, and internal brand messaging. And last but not least, we have Hazel May Overturf, Community Impact Director for Kauai Federal Credit Union. She is part of the team tasked with co-creating Kauai's vision for an economic resiliency center and for implementing programs, products, and services for underserved populations. Hazel May is the VP of the West Coast chapter of AACUC and is a co-founder of Happy Cup, the Hawaiian Asian Pacific Islander Credit Union Professionals Organization. Thank you all for being here, and let's get started. As you'll see or hear, this panel will talk about their careers in 3 stages: on the journey up, on navigating the positions that they hold, and then also on thriving in the positions as they develop their careers. So let's start with the first question. As a leader in the credit union industry, can you tell us a little bit about your professional journey? Give us that elevator speech of how you came to develop your talent, your voice, and your platform as a leader. Let's perhaps start with Whitney.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see so many familiar faces and new faces joining for the CTC Conversations. I actually have a very atypical journey for my career. I started out as an intern with two different credit unions when I was in high school and college, and then had the opportunity, once I graduated from Michigan State, to go work for Kraft Foods, where I worked within sales, brand management, category leadership, primarily with Walmart and Target, but learned how to have those tough conversations and work through lots of different scenarios. I then, went back to grad school because I wanted to make a change and have more of an impact. And I always remembered how working at the credit unions made me feel and seeing that impact for our members. And I had the opportunity to go back to MSU Federal Credit Union, which was absolutely amazing. And then for the past 2 years, I was the CEO at Elements Financial in Indianapolis. And now I am the national chair for Generation Boost, as well as the board chair for AACUC.
Great. Thank you, Whitney. Next, let's hear from Damaris.
Hey everyone, thank you for having me today. It's nice to see all these wonderful faces here. My journey actually started from the outside in, outside of corporate America, and really it started with grassroots efforts, more of a lived experience. I had a little different perspective of being raised in a neighborhood where it's mostly minority, and then going into a predominantly white institution and feeling a little off and different, and doing a lot of grassroots efforts in the community around human trafficking, as well as supporting minorities. And in that conversation, I realized I was really interested in the work that I was doing, but then needed to get a corporate job. And I started in insurance, believe it or not, many moons ago. But really still strong advocacy roots and understanding how do I navigate these spaces and helping others in corporate America where they feel more of a have to than a need to, and a need to versus a want to. And in that conversation, I started with my academic journey in DEI and really trying to understand fundamentals and how to implement that in an organizational structure. So getting business strategies, understanding the organizational change, all of those things, and then getting a degree in communication to kind of match everything that I was doing. So long and behold, acceptance was really my key thing of understanding where we are in the organization, how the organization is ready or not yet for different changes that come about, and navigating those spaces and getting to this position where I can knock on the door now and it opens.
Wonderful. Let's hear from Hazel May.
Thank you so much. Aloha, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in this world. I have an interesting journey myself along with these amazing women on this panel. So I'm just, as I'm listening, I'm in awe of being a part of this, but hoping that we all can share in community and learn from each other. So my journey in kind of financial industry and just in my career in general actually started I'm on the dark side, as a bank teller. And I was a bank teller throughout my undergrad years of college and saw the light after coming home from South Korea after teaching English, and went to a job fair and saw a bank and a credit union like sitting side by side, and got the chance to talk to both because I'm like, what's a credit union? And kind of started my career 15 years to this point now as a contact center consultant, so helping members over the phone, and knew that along in my journey, wanting to go toward HR, learning and development, and made my way to that at the former credit union that I was at. In about 2 years ago, I made a little bit of a leap after kind of a lot of self-discovery, a lot of self-development, a lot of networking, and understanding how big this movement is, to find Kauai Federal Credit Union. And so I'll talk a little bit more deeply about that calculated decision about going from a very large credit union to the beautiful environment that I'm in Kauai, and how that's changed my career and kind of my pathway now. And it's gonna, yeah, I'll stop there and kind of tease a little bit out there.
All right. Thank you. And finally, Emma, let's hear your journey.
My journey started by accident. I was happily working for state government. I say happily. I was just kind of asleep at the wheel. And I knew that there was a lot that I could be doing, but I found myself kind of comfortable because it gave me the autonomy to do things outside of work. So I didn't have to really stretch myself at work. I could really do the things that I love outside of work. My first passion is learning and development. That's where I've been my entire career. And so that's what I was doing there. And there was my sister, there came a time my sister was looking for a job because she'd been displaced. And I was sending her all of these jobs that I thought would be good for her. I wasn't really reading through them, I just sent them. And she sent me one back and said, no, this isn't my job. This is your job. Read it and let me know what you think. And so I did. I read it and I went, wow, this sounds amazing. It sounds like something I would really love doing. It was building an internal training department for a credit union that had outsourced all of their training up until that point. And I thought, what an amazing opportunity to go build something. I'd love to build. So this would be great. Let me go and build something. And I applied and I didn't get the job because I didn't have any financial background. So they thought that they would hire someone else. Well, about a year later, I got a phone call that said, hey, remember that interview you did with this credit union thing? Are you still looking? And I was like, well, I wasn't really looking then, but I mean, if you have something, let me know what it is. And they were like, would you be willing to come back and interview with us? Because we thought you were good, but we just didn't think you had financial experience. And we thought that was what we needed. And I was thinking to myself, no, you really needed me the entire time. But anyway, I digress. I did that for several years and found myself under the tutelage of Maury Smith, who had penned the Eighth Cooperative Principle. And we were doing a lot of work in the DEI space. We were partnering with AACUC to really learn how we make this extremely sticky across the industry and get people excited about the work. And then 2020 happened and it took off. And I really found myself like right in the center, working alongside Maury Smith, Renee Satter. I mean, it doesn't get any more happenstance and fortunate than that. And I did that for a while and had got another opportunity. Someone said, hey, I saw this job out there and it reads a lot like you would be, like they wrote it for you, like you would be perfect for it. And I ignored them for about a week. And they were like, no, really. Like they picked up the phone. By like the third or fourth time they tapped me on the shoulder, they picked up the phone and said, no. I don't think you understand. This is your job. Go get it. And here we are. So it's been a lot of other people really kind of saying, and both women in both regards, saying, nope, I think this is where you need to be, what you are supposed to be doing, and go do it. And just taking that leap of faith and reading through it and being excited by the challenge.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. What I'm seeing as a theme here is that, we all inadvertently found ourselves in the credit union movement without specifically looking for it, and yet embracing those opportunities that had been given to us, and seeing how that unfolds. And with that, I'd like to move into a next question, and lead it with Whitney. As you look back on the years of your career and your path towards more leadership roles, what types of support contributed to your success?
Thanks, Jennifer. It's interesting. You always hear people talk about the fact that we have to do things 2 times better than everyone else just to be looked at as equals. And I say equal, but use that term lightly. But first of all, part of it is you have to deliver. And whatever that means for your role, you have to make things happen. You have to be a change maker. Throughout my career, and I think back on my journey with numbers and some very other specific things, no one can take that away from you. Like if you meet your plan, if you do the things you need to do, that speaks for itself. And then you learn how to engage advocates and mentors along the way. And it can't just be a mentor. It needs to be someone who is in the room that you're not in, who can talk for you, put your name in the circle where, for promotions and things of that nature. And that was something that was, I had mentors when I worked for Kraft, but I learned through that whole journey of 13 years working there that I needed an advocate. And as I transitioned into the credit union movement, that's what I had, was an advocate, someone who gave me the opportunity to look at innovation differently, to look at things that we can do in the credit union movement to serve the underserved, to make a difference for others, and to actually be able to do those things. And I had that when I was at MSU-FCU. And just having that support of someone who believes in you, who's in a leadership position, can change your confidence levels and your ability to believe, you know what, I can do anything. And as I started to do that, I was like, you know what? I think I want to be a CEO and I want to do these different things and lead an organization through change and growth and look at new opportunities. And that's when I was recruited to Elements Financial. And I think, those are big, scary steps to leave your comfort zones and to go into new spaces. But those moments are so key for making you who you are, one, and knowing that sometimes you have to take a chance. Sometimes things will work out exactly the way you thought. Sometimes there's another plan in the works for you, and you have to be patient. But either way, you need to be present and be ready for those opportunities as they come along. I love to say that every day is a job interview. So, I'm always like, I stay ready. And I think that's one of the things that is really great about our industry. And once again, just having those opportunities and creating those opportunities for others as we continue to move up. But leadership is hard. Many times we're the only one and in the room, whether it's a woman or a person of color or whatever it may be. And that is a hard position to be in. And you are always under, as we talked about, that heat lamp of individuals looking at you and many times trying to take you down. But you just have to keep pressing on and be confident in the fact that you're there for a reason and you have the abilities to do that job. So that's kind of my journey in a little bit of a different light, but I love what I do. I love working with credit unions. I love working in the industry because we have a chance to change lives, and not many people can say that about their profession.
Thank you, Whitney. That's great. That's a great transition to my next question. And for Emma, what kinds of leverages, how have you leveraged the privileges that come with being a leader to help elevate someone else, and particularly women in leadership roles? Because as Whitney has talked about, right, it's paying it forward and helping others along that journey.
Yeah, so let me say I am extremely blessed and fortunate to have been encouraged by a lot of amazing women throughout my career. Some of them sat in leadership positions and positions of influence and authority, and some of them did not. Some of them were women who were in lower levels in organizations that I worked in, who also encouraged me by being a recipient of some of the things that I feel I have to offer. So we talk a bit about what do we do to send the elevator back down? And I like that concept of sending the elevator back down. But I really believe that instead of sending it back down, because it's almost painful to have the doors slam in your face to begin with, why don't we just hold the button, hold the door open so that they can come with us? And so that's where I like to try to live my life, with the door open, like always with the door open, waiting for that next opportunity to make a connection for someone, to sponsor someone. Whitney talked about them not being in the room. I find that opportunity to say, hey, listen, there's this person out here. I see your pain point. I know what that struggle is. And I know someone who I believe would be amazing at helping you minimize the impact of whatever struggle you're feeling. So being a sponsor for women who don't even know, sometimes I'm having these conversations on their behalf. And then mentoring. I am actually a mentor in several mentor programs. And I love working with young women, girls and young women. That's my passion. So I say I love the two ends of the spectrum, young people and old people. That's that's my happy place. I love young people. There's so much wisdom, right? But just mentoring, helping them figure out who they are and then how to navigate who they are authentically in the spaces where they currently sit, in hopes of elevating them to where they really want to be. So I love to do that. Encouraging. I find myself encouraging women. Sorry, my light's going off. I find myself encouraging women all the time. Sometimes women I don't know. I mean, it's like in the airport and I'll see someone crying and I'm like, oh, it's okay, you know. But I feel like sometimes we find ourselves, especially as women, we find ourselves with this facade and this image that we feel like we have to portray, that we are strong and we are, you know, all things to all people. And the reality is we're just human. And so helping other women realize it's okay to be human. It's okay to be not okay. It's okay to need help. It's okay to ask for what you need, to tell people what you're worth, what you think you're worth. Like all of those things are okay. And just encouraging women in general just to be who they are in a way that helps them progress through or matriculate through the ranks that they want to matriculate through. And then amplify, which is the whole conversation we're having today, right? So as you mentioned before, amplifying meaning just to add to or provide emphasis. And I love doing that as well. I'll hear someone say something and I'll come behind them in support of it, right? Because we hear it sometimes, but sometimes it takes a little more for some of our leaders to hear it from women who may be their peer. They may not be able to hear it from someone else. And so just being the person who can say, you know what? I know that this was a conversation you had with, you know, XYZ person. Let me tell you about my experience. And my experience says this about that person. And here's how they've proven competent in these areas. And here's why I believe they would be an amazing fit for the things that you're envisioning them to do. I think you're on the right path. Let's see if we can't, you know, those type things. And I think that's our responsibility for anyone like myself who has attained a certain level in an organization. It's not enough to send the elevator back down. It is absolutely our responsibility to wait there, hold the door open so that they can ride up with us.
I love that. I love that. And, you know, thinking about what both Whitney and Emma have just shared, right? What I'm seeing here is, you know, in navigating that journey towards more leadership roles and for owning your professional, you know, self, it's a combination of both vulnerability, right? As Emma talked about, admitting to your own vulnerabilities and also leaving room for vulnerabilities for others, right? Checking in on folks, seeing the humanity in their everyday lives, that they're juggling more than just their professional career. But as Whitney had reminded us, right, we stay ready, right? We are able to deliver on what is being asked of us, even with vulnerability on that, you know, side. They don't come in opposition, right? And I think that's where we need to debunk that myth. You can do both. It's a both and situation. I can be vulnerable and I can let others be vulnerable, but we stay ready, which is a great combination and something to model. Now, as we navigate our careers, I want to, you know, send this question over to Damaris to get us started. Do you find that as you've had to establish your professional role, that you've had to navigate situations where your qualifications are scrutinized, your skills, your work is questioned, undermined, or under scrutiny? And how do you navigate that?
Wow, you give me the loaded question. Okay.
Because I know you're ready. I know you stay ready.
You got to be ready. You know, it's very interesting in that conversation as we talk about vulnerability, because that feels almost contradictory, right, to that survival tactic of like being vulnerable in a space where you constantly having to prove yourself. And it's almost seen as, is this going to work, against me? Looking through my journey, I've been questioned being a person in the DEI space in corporate America, particularly the financial industry. It's very tasking, right? You're constantly having to cross your T's, dot your I's, show up perfect, do above and beyond, know all the answers, anticipate questions, overcome challenges, and kind of learn every one. So you have to be everything to everybody all at the same time while existing. And then doing your work. So it can almost, vulnerability is one of those conversations that you don't have with yourself. Vulnerability is not one of those things that you delve in or you sit in or even less live in. But what I've come to realize in that space is that I've had to take calculated risks in that vulnerability space. It can be good for you mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and talking about opportunity. I was at church and talk about preparedness. One thing that the pastor had said to me says, opportunity will always be arrested stalking preparation. And in that conversation, I was like, wait a minute, you got to repeat that again. Opportunity will always get arrested stalking preparedness. And it made me understand that at all times, preparedness looks different for everybody, right? What is the next step that you're trying to get to? How do I get there? That preparation is key, but I've also had to qualify my work with people who were less qualified than I was. Part of it is the challenges that I get from ego, right? People are scared of what they don't know. Tone policing, I call it, where I come in direct or sure, very confident of what I'm doing, and then get challenged almost as if they're more qualified than I am in what I'm doing. I can have all the credentials, I can have all the experience. I've had 15 years of experience, and yet still there are times when I'm questioned about the validity of the information I'm presenting. And it kind of confuses me still to this day, like, I don't understand, well, what information do you have that contradicts the information that I'm providing, right? Navigating these spaces of putting on that smile and you see the head tilt, like, help me understand what you don't understand and how to show up in a way that gets the message across. It can be tasking because you're kind of playing in DEI, you're in this limbo period or in this path of you're not moving fast enough for the people who live in these challenges every single day. And then in other circumstances, you're moving too fast for others who've never experienced being a person of color, and particularly a woman of color. So you're navigating these strategies and data, and we're trading people for numbers. Data is numbers that are calculated by people. Data comes from people, right? We're the average of, the most of, what are the percentages of, and how do we account for that? But behind all those numbers are people with actual lived experiences. And when you show up, and I show up to the table, and they don't know the information, but they have a different title, and I come in and I'm sure, it almost feels like a humbling experience where it feels like, do I need to humble you to understand what your role is? Or because there's no other person that's in this space that's knowledgeable, or do you really know the business, right? Because I haven't been in the financial industry, that doesn't necessarily negate that I don't know what I'm doing. So the goalpost keeps moving, and I'm constantly having to quantify what I'm doing, right? What are the numbers behind it? But we're talking about
Nonprofit leaders and managers with
what
a
are all these things that we're
approach to
doing
managing
behind
diversity and
it to kind of understand how we're getting to the end goal. So part of it is me having to be mindful, check myself and my own bias, even in the work, because the work that I do has unintended consequences. By default, my work puts other people at risk. And it's hard to believe that. But when you're doing DEI, what is the goal, right? Is to really dismantle systemic issues that are happening in the corporate America. And by default, whether we focus on a particular demographic, socioeconomic class, those people that show up to work just doing their job are now feeling a little bit targeted because the focus is now on them. And even though we're there to help them, they're still feeling that pressure. So now we're having to educate the broader community. And now I'm having to prove that I know what I am doing, and that you have to build trust with people who may not have the same mentality or same aspirations or even the same passion, right? They don't experience this in their day-to-day. How does this apply to my job? I'm having to combat all of these different ideals and build trust and influence, even without a certain title. And that can get exhausting, right? And it's very defeating sometimes. I get a lot of professionals in the DEI space who don't last very long, because it is an uphill battle at times, because you are seen as less than at moments. You are constantly having to figure out and work into your conversation, your qualifications, even though the work can speak for itself.
Thanks for that.
Jennifer, can I please
Oh,
just
yes,
add
I was going to
just a little-
say.
just a little something, because Damaris was over there, and I promise you, I was the amen corner over here, and I'm a Southern Baptist, so I'm telling you, I was over here in the amen corner. But what it struck for me was this realization, and it's not an epiphany in the moment. It's something that I've come into the understanding that when questioned, when challenged, when all of those things are coming at me, they feel like they're the root cause, but they're really not. They're simply a symptom. And typically it's a symptom of insecurity. It's a symptom of fear. It's a symptom of the unknown, right? All of those things that people are not sure what's going to come, what is going to be the result of this person's work. And what it shows up as is questioning and resistance and hesitancy. And because, to Damaris's point, we're here to dismantle the systems that create the inequity. And that means someone's benefiting from this inequity. And if I'm one of those who benefit from this inequity, then I come to the conversation ready to say, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you here? What makes you qualified, right? I come with that, but it's just the symptom of the fear that it's going to be elevating this group of people at the expense of another group of people, which really isn't the work that we're doing. It's more, how do we figure out how to make sure that everybody has equitable opportunity? And that doesn't look the same for everyone, because not everyone needs the same thing. But I think that's the mindset that I've had to adopt around those challenges is they're coming in fear. It looks like confidence, but I know behind it is fear.
That's right. I'm so glad that you echoed, Damaris's sentiments, Emma, because, yeah, those responses that we knee-jerk react to, right? When our data is called into question, when our, leadership skills are called into question, oftentimes that's coming from a place that's not of our own, right? Making it's from someone else. It's about insecurities. It's about being confronted with the reality that it's going to take some time and it's going to take a lot of effort on everyone's parts. It's not just going to be easy to bring someone in and one and done, right? It's going to wrap up itself very cleanly. It took centuries for these inequities to be built into place, as well as centuries to enforce them. So what makes one think that it's only going to take a couple years, right? Or it's going to take overnight, practically, right, to make these changes. And so somebody on the chat had talked about, had mentioned the kind of differences in time, going too fast. For others, it's too slow. And we're having to navigate all of that. And at the same time, dodge bullets. On top of that, right, attending to our personal lives. On top of that, having to juggle so many other things. And yeah, where is the grace for us to be able to accomplish what they had asked us, what they had tasked us to do? Where is that grace to allow us to fulfill those goals?
Jennifer, and I did want to kind of point out, because I
Yeah.
would be remiss if I wasn't transparent and honest to say that in that insecurity and fear on the other side of the table also creates insecurity and fear in myself, right? As you're being challenged, I'm not going to sit here and say like, it didn't shake me, or it didn't make me question myself at times, right? Where you are starting now to doubt your ability to actually impact and do the work. So I've had to learn to build that confidence and understand and give myself some grace, and put the cape down and burn the cape and not think about being strong, because I'm like, I'm over the being strong person. I'm at that point in my life now, but having to build a toolkit to allow myself to accept where I'm going with the impact and how far that may or may not take me, and understand why am I doing this, and am I okay just kind of being here in the moment, in this season, and the work that I'm doing in this space. It's very challenging to kind of checking myself, because I do have to balance my own well-being and my own emotional security, because the work that you do in this space when it comes to financial literacy, or closing that wealth gap, or even looking at helping minorities, particularly women of color, it makes me sad sometimes that there are so many qualified, wonderful women who can not only do and excel the work, but are misunderstood, misrepresented, miscommunicated. And to Emma's point of holding that door open, sometimes we have to challenge ourselves to get out of self-preservation mode and into advocacy role of, hey, I used to have to hoard my work because I was afraid somebody else was going to steal my strategy because they wanted it for themselves. I've had to protect my work. And now I've gotten to the space where I'm like, here, take it, tweak it, do it. I want to see you, I give it to other women. I want to see you succeed. Put your name on it. I want to see you thrive, because your win as a woman of color is my win as a woman of color.
Love that. And your win, right, and translating that to others' win as a group, right, speaks to this idea too of mentorship, which I'd love to ask Hazel May. I consider you one of my mentors. When I first got into this industry, you took me under your wing, and so I'd love for you to speak a little bit about how mentorship, or lack thereof, has played a role in navigating the landscape of your career.
Yeah. I hope you all are getting chicken skin as much as I am. And it's now that this question is upon me, it's hard because these lovely ladies have built up this foundation of what has been a thread in my journey. And that has been the lack of humanity that exists in these systems that that we exist in. And so the lack of humanity led me on a journey of wanting to find my community. And when we find community and we find others that are, experiencing similar things, or in survival, self-preservation mode, and navigating through this, we can find our mentors, we can find the advocates, we can find the allies that can help us through that. And I will be completely transparent with y'all. I didn't find my community until 10 years at least into my credit union career. Then I think it was Emma who talked about just being asleep and at the wheel. I was just going through the motions, knew I wanted to get through a particular job, get to a particular level, and didn't realize the immense movement, the immense network that we have at our disposal. I got connected to so many different opportunities through the DE program, through the AACUC, through things like crashing the GAC with the cooperative trust. And these different micro communities is where I found my people. And that has been like the game changer for me. And once I recognized that there was these communities out here doing this work, they helped me see the reflection of myself and my authenticity, my strengths, what I bring to the table. And it now has been, since discovering that, a journey of shifting from this scarcity mindset of like trying to get through everything and try to like hoard and like hold things in place because that's all we can do to survive, to like knowing that there's abundance in not only your community and the people that are doing this work, but in ourselves. And that has been my like kind of journey working through this. And I didn't find that until I found the AACUC, till I found the Crasher program, till I found DEs, and till I found deeper into the larger credit union movement that exists. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is like this abundance mindset is actually so culturally ingrained in many different cultures outside of our Western civilization that we live in now. And I bring that, like, that was in me. I'm Filipino. Like, we are a collective society. We help uplift each other. If someone needs something, we go and we give that to them, or we bring them in, if even if they don't ask for help. And I love that Jen like talks about how I'm her mentor. Like, I look at all these women, I look at her as a mentor for me because it's a mutual thing. Like, we all lift and bring each other up. And I take that opportunity as much as I can. Emma brought in like holding the door open. In a former conversation with friends at AACUC, I shared about a quote from Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop, and she's like the queen of multicultural children's literature. And she talked about representation being like the need and like what will change the world for like establishing a foundation of acceptance, diversity, and equity inclusion for young people and onward. And she's still a Black professor at Ohio State University, and she talked about the concept of mirrors, windows, and sliding doors. And you're probably gonna get to where I'm going. And in books, if we have representation, if we see the people that look like us, that think like us, that feel like us, that humanity back into the room, we either can be a mirror for them where they see themselves. They can also be a window where they're seeing into that world and see that they can belong to that, or it can be a sliding door where the door is open and they can enter that world. And when I think about everyone who I may have brought up with me, or it's with me, it's not like, I don't know how to describe it, but it is, I think of being in that open door, that sliding door that helps people. I will be the first person to say your name. I will be the first person you can text and call because I want to see you succeed, because if you succeed, we all succeed. And so mentorship has been that, just through community, through bringing back humanity into these spaces. And I am forever grateful for every person that comes to my door, and invite anyone else to join me in that.
I love that framework, Hazel May. And I see that a lot of folks on the chat are saying that too, right? The abundance mindset, which is the opposite of scarcity mindset. This idea that there can be only one, right? Or your win, right, comes at the expense of another, right? Everybody wins. And I think it's about that cognitive change that we have to do, right? And getting out of that scarcity mindset, to be able to encourage one another's wins and to be able to support one another along the way, without resorting to this idea that it's a competition. I don't know if anybody else on the panel wants to echo anything that Hazel May has talked about so far.
Just ditto. How do you top that? I mean, she said
Right.
it all. Drop the mic. We can just go on ahead and go.
Right?
I
Yeah.
love that. Love that. There's room for everyone at the table. And if you feel like, oh my gosh, there isn't, move over, put a chair down, and invite them over. I love it. Thanks, Hazel May.
Right. You know, that's what we have to do. Take that new mindset and pay it forward, right? Amplify it. We are not going to repeat that scarcity mindset, right? We're going to make room at the table because there is room, right? Let's move on to the topic of thriving, not just surviving in our roles as leaders, but it's all about seeing our humanity. So let's start with this question of, how do you debunk the myth that women of color leaders are these superhuman, folks who can juggle it all, do it all? How do you get your coworkers, your leadership teams to understand that while you've got a lot going on, while you stay ready, while you're an effective leader, you're still human? I know I remember hearing some stuff from Damara, so take it away and yeah, let's start there.
Taking care of myself. That's probably goal number one. How to get people to believe in you is that I had to start believing in myself in order for someone else to see me, right? Because there are times where other people see me as I don't see myself. I'm very hard on myself, somewhat of a perfectionist, but taking care of myself and learning what it takes to be me and being okay with those vulnerable moments and leaving that where it is has helped me gain myself and letting others show up for me. Creating fences and not walls, creating boundaries where I didn't have any before, learning when to let people through and then when to, put them in their lane. All of that is a healing journey, right? That's an ongoing thing. And as you navigate in different spaces of the organization, different seasons of your life, I've had to make those adjustments for myself and for others. It can be a very scary place to make those decisions because you're not the only one who's impacted, right? I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I have all these other people dependent on my success, those that I'm impacting, the work, my success, or my opportunities to learn. But in that conversation, there was no other way to thrive and survive, get past the surviving into thriving, until I finally accepted myself and saw myself as the person who matched the preparedness and the work that I was setting up.
I mean, I just totally agree with everything that you've said. I learned the hard way of going so hard all the time and had the negative health effects of being that superwoman. Because I think ultimately, I mean, we joke about these things, but I was like, I feel like I have to be superwoman if I'm going to make it. Like, I don't have a choice. And, I'm a mother of two young kids, and I was going through a divorce, and just like life was really lifing. And it feels like you have to take that moment to focus on yourself and your health, or things might just get slowed down for you so that you don't have a choice and that you have to put your health first. And that's something that was a hard lesson for me to learn just through my health journey. But if you don't take care of yourself, no one else will. And you can't take care of anyone else or help anyone else or hold the door open. Um, and it's just so important to take that time for you. And that's the hardest thing that I've had for honestly throughout my career is thinking about myself first. It's always thinking about everyone else. And, until I literally essentially God was like, you better sit down right now and learn how to take care of yourself. And I did it and I listened and now I feel like, okay, I'm back to being me. I can do these things. And it was a hard lesson, to learn, but we've all had those moments in our careers where you have to slow down, where you have to reevaluate and prioritize things differently in order to remain who you are and be successful.
Yeah. And I
So I
think
had to ask myself, why do people think we're superwomen? Like, why would they think that? Do we not look human? Like,
yeah,
what makes us so different that they think that we can do it all? Well, it's because we gave them that impression. So we are complicit in the idea that we are superwomen. And so my challenge for every one of you is to debunk the myth. Show your humanity. No is a complete sentence. And it's okay to say that you're not going to do it, especially when it does not further your cause, the evolution of you, who you are. It is okay. It is okay to be tired and to let people know that you're tired. It's okay to need a mental health day It's okay to have a paid friend. That's what I call mine. The person that you go and sit on their couch and talk to. Well, now it's over Zoom, but it's okay. That is perfectly fine. Like, where else can we put it? We can't carry it. We can no longer afford to carry it on our backs. And please, whatever you do, don't wear it like a badge of courage. It benefits none of us for us to be so physically, emotionally, and mentally exhausted that we are no good for anyone, including ourselves. Our families get the absolute worst of us because we come home at the end of the day and we've got nothing left. So, to all of you who are complicit in having people think that we are superhuman, please stop. I beg you to please stop. Take the time that you need for yourself and afford grace to anyone else who shows their humanity.
Thank you for that. As one of my mentors had told me, she often regularly uses the phrase, I will not be complicit in my own oppression. Thank you very much. um, and, for myself as a working mom, I've got two teenagers. There are days where it's going to be a drop off situation where I'm dropping you off. I'm not sitting in on your band recital because I've got this thing at work. Or the opposite. I'm sorry, I can't show up for this thing at work, but my kid has got a recital, right? It goes both ways. I'll throw the kids a frozen pizza, make it work, right? Just don't burn down the house. That's okay, right? They're gonna live. And so not striving for those standards that have been put up for us that are not realistic, that are embedded in race, class, culture, that we need to question and take a pause on is really important, right? And not being complicit in our own oppression, that's where it starts. Yeah. Thank you for
One thing
go
that I'll
ahead,
add to
Leila May.
that,
Yes.
my perspective is it's yes and my in ways that I've worked through this navigation of that, like, surrender to being complicit to that action is I've learned to, like, even more lean into my acceptance of myself. And we exist in a world of extremes, right? Like, just go on the news. Like, it's just like go on the internet. Like, it's all like every day there's this like back and forth, this fight. And when I got to the point of shifting more toward an abundance mindset, it's okay to have both in existence in duality. And I had to share, like, an Eastern philosophy concept is the yin and the yang, which is the symbol that's kind of like the two half circles that are swirly and then dots. We have that all inside of us, whether you're a mother or an aunt or like a worker versus like what you have in your personal lives. They exist at all times. And they're all like, maybe we're not super one, but they exist and they're powerful. You have what you need in yourself. And I constantly think about that because it helps me create the discernment of whether or not I say yes, whether I say no, whether something will fuel me, whether something will like take away. And having that pause to realize and like celebrate your strength and what you are and what you bring to the table, and then making that decisions is like what has been kind of like have helped release some of the stress, release some of the anxiety that has come along with that. And in all honesty, it's helped me be unapologetically me, which is something that a mentor once told me, there's going to be no other Hazel May over turf in this world. So who do you want to show up as? Who are you? And like make sure that comes to the forefront. And that's what I think what everyone should do. Think about the yin and yang that exist in you and know that you yourself are going to be what exists in this world and how do you want to show up to it.
Oh my God, I love that, Hazel May. That's so wonderful. If I could just add just one slight thing, I know we're getting close to time. So we're all in the finance world. So the one thing I love to think about is you only have 100% to give. So whether that's your family, whether it's work, whether it's friends, whether it's, your spirituality or your mental, whatever it is, it's only 100%. That means sometimes things are going to get everything's going to be equal. Sometimes work's going to get more. Sometimes, family is going to get more, but you only have 100% to give. And 100% is a lot. It's a lot to give. And I think that kind of helps me with the framework mentally, like, okay, I only have 100% to give. Because that's another thing, along with the superheroes, that we all feel like we have to give 200% or 150%. And there's only 100%. And, keeping that in perspective can help you balance. And I love, that's why when you were talking about the yin and the yang, Hazel May, it made me think about that that's what there is. There's just that balance and things have to work together. So thank you for that.
Any other comments or last thoughts from the panel before we open up for questions in the last couple minutes? Anything? All right. SP, do we have any questions from the chat? I haven't been able to catch up with everything.
The chat has been popping off. So many amazing tips. So many, like, I relate to that. Yes. Like, amazing, phenomenal. I even got teary-eyed with some of the stuff y'all were saying because it's so relatable as a wife, as a mother, as a woman, as a person of color. So no questions have come through besides the one that just came in from Caroline, which is, where can I get abundance training? That is a great one. Where can we get that training? But I do want to open the floor, at least for one person, or Miss Renee, I believe she's on, to unmute yourself and just ask a question if you have that. Miss Renee, share some pieces, some of those nuggets that she always shares with us.
No, the ladies were wonderful. I would ask that each lady give us one word for encouragement as we move forward for 2024. What's the one word you can give us? Whitney.
Hope.
All right, love it. Hope. Damaris, you.
Resilient.
Resilient. Wonderful. Jen.
Abundance.
Okay. Hazel May.
That was gonna be my word. I will say gratitude.
Okay. And Emma?
Grace.
All right. And SP, what do you have for us?
I have ditto to all of them because there's so many good words. But mine, I will totally be honest, is also abundance.
The last thing that I would say, wonderful panel. Oh my gosh, it was great. I got the last 30 minutes. I was stuck. I thought it was 1 o'clock. I apologize, people, but it was phenomenal. So I can't wait to watch the recording. I implore you, take care of yourselves, lady. And I love that no is a sentence. Please take care of yourselves. Back to you, Jen.
All right. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself. This is your chance. Or, if not a question, is there anything in particular that resonated with you that you just like to amplify?
Still waiting to hear about abundance training. Seriously.
Yeah, I can share a little bit about that because it is
Yay.
find a link. But
Hi, Hazel May.
actually,
So nice to see you. Sorry.
nice to see you too. We've been working with, it's funny enough, we've been working with indigenous populations and cultural practitioners around this thought of abundance mindset. And I found it. So I'll post a link in the chat of a few resources, but just culturally, naturally, they have been a group, especially in like, when we think about climate change and everything that's happening, that if we could bring back things that like served the land, served the people for hundreds of years forward, they believed in abundance. They believed that they had what they needed to survive. And colonization, and contact actually caused the shift to happen of like scarcity and grabbing and capitalism, all these things that are a little bit potentially on the extremes, right? And we have been leaning into our cultural practitioners on Kauai, and that has been and then there's so many across the US, of course. So I'm going to put a link in the chat for you.
Thank you. There's an amazing book called Braiding Sweetgrass that I'm putting in the chat too. It's very, very good.
Sweetgrass.
Like, oh, I love that book so much. I've given it to 5 people already. So
Yeah. Look towards, even literature, as you're saying, literature, the writings of women of color, writings of folks who are coming from colonized spaces. They often reveal some of those mindsets, those ways that have been lost with, colonization that we're trying to reclaim. How do we think about time differently? How do we think about our relationships differently? How do we think about our relationship to work in a way that is not about scarcity, but is more about abundance and collaborations rather than competitions? Love that. ABCD, Abundance Business Cooperative Development, is an up and coming network. Yeah, exactly. All right, we are at time. Thank you, everybody, for joining in this conversation. Again, hope this is just the beginning, that we will continue these conversations in the months and years to come. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.